This past week, I did a couple of product owner classes, and one of the questions came up about vision and strategy. And the question was kind of worded like this. It was like, Lee, vision is easy. Everybody can get their head around vision. But why is strategy so hard to define? Why is strategy such a challenge for most organizations? And I wanted to give a really solid answer, but I also wanted to be thoughtful. So I took a few minutes to think about it, and I came to the conclusion that many people just aren't the reflective type, and they don't necessarily consider this. So if you're a reflective type and you've ever considered how difficult it is to truly define strategy, you're not alone, right? I blame the abusers of the term strategy. So many people abuse what strategy actually means. Those who use it with wild abandon and insert it into pedestrian comms repeatedly and deliberately. People who believe that activity becomes strategic simply by labeling it that. It's those offenders that make the idea of strategy complex and nebulous. It's difficult to visualize something you're not sure that you've seen. For an organization, a strategy needs to address two questions. This is the easiest way for me to tell you. The two questions are, one, why do we exist? And two, what do we really do? And I think that organizations struggle with that because many organizations are still in a mode of growth where they feel like they need to be everything to everyone. They need to do everything. And that's not necessarily true. And I feel like organizations who are in that mode are struggling, and that makes sense. But the ones that kill me are the organizations that aren't in growth mode that are still struggling. So the answers to those questions it's not like the sole things you need to know to define strategy. But in terms of establishing a commencement point, they're optimal questions to begin with. It's going to be difficult to determine what sort of threats may exist in an external environment without having clarity of purpose and intent. Though these seem like questions that would be asked at the outset, many businesses are not static, nor are they the competitive forces that influence their decisions. So it's never too late to enter this line of inquiry. So a good strategy answers a bunch of questions. In my class, I teach about the five question words, and I talk about these because these are the words that you learned in grade 3, right? But these are the words that should resonate with you. Of course, I'm talking about who, what, where, when, why, and how. And what I talk about is for our target audience, because that covers the who's struggling or suffering with this problem. That covers the why. Our product, that's the what, is a more defined what, that provides this key benefit, a compelling reason to buy it. That will be the how it solves the problem. Unlike our competitors and what they do, right? Unlike our competitors and why they're different, that shows the importance of when we're doing it or why we're doing it now. Our product does this different or better where, right? So if you think about it that way, it makes a lot of sense. Now, some people struggle with those, and some people struggle with that elevator pitch from Jeffrey Moore. But if you just take the time to ask yourself 4 key questions, you'll at least be on your way. So the first one is, where do we compete? Where do we compete? Where are we going with this? What unique value do we bring? And what resource and capabilities do we utilize to get there? What makes us unique? And how do we sustain that unique value? And I think that if you do this, it's going to help you really think about your product or service. Now, you can take that information and you can put it into a map, and once you put it in mapping, then it really starts to resonate and make sense. And I think that those are the keys that organizations skip. Now, to take it to a broader scale, I always say, quote, strategy doesn't exist in a vacuum. If you don't have a strategy, you need to. And I think that there are so many organizations who just don't know how to get there or don't know why they want to get there. In fact, I heard one organization just straight up tell me, they said, we need to focus on execution. We don't have time for ideation, initiation, and discovery. We need to go straight to execution because we need to beat the competitors to market. This is a dog-eat-dog world. And it was disappointing to hear that because I feel like if you take that approach, you're going to find out quickly that you don't have a strategy, and there's a problem with that. I mean, some organizations just decide we won't have a strategy. And there's no explicit evidence that they have integrated their organizational aspirations through those questions. We exist in an age where we're constantly presented with the idea that countless opportunities exist. There's a shortcut to any destination. Yet we fail to question why we've succeeded in the past where others have failed, especially when the barriers to entry are so low. If a business is completely unaware of how its viability may be affected, it's operating without a strategy. The absence of a defined strategy renders the creation of a plan to achieve the strategic goals very difficult, and whatever is defined will ultimately lack clarity. So it's hard for a team to execute a plan that will give their company a big advantage when it's unclear what direction their utopia lies. You can't sit here and say, oh, I'm moving in this direction, and then change directions every 10 minutes. It just doesn't, it doesn't work. It's not practical. So when a business is in peril, which is usually when they call on me, no solution can come fast enough. And if you're reactive at this point, chances are you're reactive when conceiving and announcing your strategy. Those who let the need for a strategy until it's too late are ill-placed when it comes to shepherding their teams towards an objective, let alone the objective, right? And for those who did buy into it, expect the second, maybe third pivot to be where you find a flock that's lost. It's amazing to me that organizations can just huddle underneath this, I don't need it because it's going to take too much time or it's too expensive, when in actuality, this is the piece that saves their hide and saves them money. So if you're trying to figure out where strategy lies, you need to keep in mind that if you just let the teams walk aimlessly, you may have heard this quote before, garbage in equals garbage out. The absence of a plan accomplished through the appropriate analysis and clarity of what's being asked and taking place externally or internally, economical, social, political forces, as well as other things that are happening, the organization will not have the competency and personnel to deliver their objectives. You need to have a strategy in order to get some clear direction. You might try to label certain things as a strategy as you go, but it isn't likely to achieve your intended outcome unless you're being deliberate about what you're trying to do. That's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.